It is now 6:30 p.m. This is Monday, May 20th, and this is the opening of the normally scheduled Norton Conservation Commission meeting. And as is required, we will begin with the reading of the preamble related to this being a remote conducted meeting. So Dan, you're on.
Pursuant to Governor Healey's March 29th, 2023 bill extending several COVID-era policies and programs by allowing virtual meetings to continue from March 31st, 2023 to March 31st, 2025, this meeting of the Norton Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and or parties with a right and or requirement to attend this meeting can be found at the end of this agenda. Members of the public attending this public hearing / meeting virtually will be allowed to make comments if they wish to do so during the portion of the hearing designated for public comment by raising their hand virtually or pressing *9 if participating by phone. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Norton Cable website www.nortonmediacenter.org an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting.
Thank you, Dan. So members of the commission participating tonight include myself, Julian Kadish, Chair, Lisa Carrozza, Vice Chair, Joe Carvalho, Paxton Halsall, Mark Fernandez, and my screen just changed, but Tom Vest was just there. Oh, there you are. And Dan Pearson. So I think we have a full board tonight. Unfortunately, our director was not able to join us, John Thomas, tonight, but we have Megan Rupp here, our assistant.
Is John okay?
I think, I believe this is vacation time. Is that correct?
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, he's on vacation.
He's very okay.
So I assume he's just fine. So our first, we do have two new public hearings. The first of those on our agenda doesn't have a number. I believe the number has come through since then. It relates to 61 West Main Street. It's a notice of intent, and in particular, it relates to revisions of parking lot of Honeydew Donuts in the center of Norton. So do we have a representative of the applicant?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. For the record, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer with Strong Point Engineering, representing Honeydew Associates this evening.
So I assume you have a plan, and Megan, are you going to be able to authorize him to screen share?
Yes, you should have capabilities now, Eric.
Absolutely. Let me do this. And I am going to start, if it's okay, by just talking off the aerial photos that are coming up on your screen now. So this is obviously, as stated, an after-the-fact notice of intent. The image that you see on the left side of the screen is the Honeydew property as it existed in 2021. Then you can see that there is, and I'll show it better on the plan, but there is a BBW in the rear and on the side here. So portions of the building in the rear parking lot are located in buffer zones. Somewhere around 2022-ish, they made some changes to the site, which is what you see now. This aerial photo was taken from 2023. And what you'll note is that obviously they've changed the cubic green here. They've added some pervious surface where it used to be impervious. And they did the same thing in this corner here. They removed some impervious surface. All of this was done to improve circulation and queuing within the facility. Unfortunately, you know, from just a lack of knowledge, they did not file with the commission as they should have. Now that said, they were somewhat fortunate. We've taken a pretty deep dive into this as far as what they did, and that's where the plan comes in. The things that you see shown in red are the things that changed on the site. So first, what you'll notice is that this whole area here and this area that is admittedly outside a buffer zone it turned pervious from impervious. So that is a benefit, basically. It helps with stormwater retention and things like that. The other thing is there was a small addition of pavement in this area here that I believe was just kind of squared off to help cars get past the building and give a bypass lane to the drive-through aisle. So they did create about 130 square feet of impervious surface within the buffer zone. You'll note just by these dimensions, it's about 2 feet further away than the closest point to the BBW was prior to that. It did not require any additional tree clearing or anything like that. It was just an area of lawn that was turned into that, turned into impervious. But the other thing that you'll notice is whoever did this did it with the existing drainage structures in mind. You'll see if we zoom in, there is an existing catch basin in this location. This was existing prior to the changes, as was this. So all of the stormwater that collects here is still directed to the catch basin that it was originally directed to. So stormwater conditions on site, stormwater patterns haven't changed. All of the runoff is still going to the same area that it was before. And theoretically, and we haven't run all the numbers because I didn't think it was quite necessary at this time, but just by the fact that there is additional pervious surface on the site now, interior to the parking lot, in theory, there's a very slight amount less stormwater going there now. The other thing that they did is they reestablished this curb that was along the back here, where it was kind of a little beat up at the time. So they reestablished that curb, which is helpful because it sort of captures everything and stops overland flow from the parking area from going into the vegetated buffer zone and directs it to the catch basins. So if we just take a quick look at the side of the page here, we'll see that we ran some calculations, and within the buffer zone, they actually reduced pavement by 45 square feet. It's very negligible, but so be it. Total site wide, they reduced by about 2,500 square feet. So again, I think that's actually an improvement over the existing conditions, or the prior condition, I should say. You know, knowing this commission, I would garner to posit that had they come forward with a notice of intent, certainly I believe to do this work, I believe in order conditions would have been granted. And I might go as far as say it may have been possible to file an RDA on something like this, considering that it's really just a reduction of impervious surface. So what we're asking tonight is that the commission really just to kind of dot the i's and cross the t's will issue an order of conditions for the work after the fact. And then what our plan would be is to let the appeal period lapse and then file for a request for a certificate of compliance as soon as possible, just to get everything in good standing where it's supposed to be. So Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got. I'm glad to answer any questions.
So currently the stormwater system is functioning normally, and there were no performance problems with these changes, I'm assuming.
None that have been reported to us by the owner of the property or that we've heard from the town at any point. So we have no reason to believe that it's been an issue at all.
And this was initiated by a change in the property owner? Is that part of it, or?
No, it wasn't a change in the property owner. I think what was happening is that Honeydew Associates just needed some additional queue length in the drive aisle, in the drive-through aisle, and you know, to separate the vehicular, the people who would park and come into the building from the drive-through customers. So for them, it was a matter of practicality. My understanding from speaking with the folks at Honeydew is that they did at some point speak to some representative from the town about this, although they don't remember who it was. And I don't know that they were advised to necessarily go to the Conservation Commission, maybe not realizing that there was a wetland in the back here. But nonetheless, here we are.
Okay. Well, this does happen, although Norton is allegedly about 53% wetlands, so you can't do much without being within 100 foot of them in this town. So, questions from members of the commission?
So, Eric, did DEP have any comments when they issued the number?
They did not have any comments when they issued the number, and I do have the number here in front of me. Just for the record, it's 250-1156. Prior to issuance of the number, though, I did get an email from Jacqueline in the Cero office, just asking for us to provide some information about stormwater management on the site, which we provided not only to them, and they subsequently issued the number on Friday afternoon, but we also uploaded it on Thursday afternoon to the local site, just because we wanted you folks to have all the same information.
What was the nature of that information? Was it, because one of my first questions is, you have catch basins to capture the flow, but you didn't talk about where that discharges and what the existing water quality features are?
Sure. In fact, let me pull up that stormwater update and I can share it with you right now.
Mm-hmm.
So what we did just in response to Jacqueline's request is just go through and enumerate how this particular change affected the performance standards given in the stormwater management handbook. So basically standard one is no new discharges, and this work did not result in a new discharge to a wetland. Everything goes to the place it went before. I'll group these together for peak rate attenuation, recharge, and water quality. Just basically, even without running the numbers, anytime we reduce impervious surface that vehicles drive on, we lessen peak rate runoff. We increase the ability for recharge and water quality on the site. So those are a benefit. The last few standards is 5 and 6 do not apply. 7, this is a redevelopment project, so the standards would apply to the extent practical. Standard 8, unfortunately, we missed the bus on construction period controls because this is after the fact. 9 is an operations and maintenance plan. We're operating under the belief that there's an operations and maintenance plan in existence for this because we don't know of any issues that we've had so far or that have been reported to the town. So the applicant has just agreed to keep maintaining the system as he always has. And number 10, we actually did, because I don't know that this exists, provide an illicit discharge statement. That basically just says that we're not aware of any, and we will continue to make sure that none come up.
So they're operating, they're operating under an O&M plan that tells them how often to clean the catch basins and whatnot. Can we get a copy of that?
Yeah, I can either find a record of it from them, or for that matter, if there's something that doesn't necessarily exist or might be subpar, we can even beef it up and make it better.
Okay. And so can you just go over, go back to the site plan,
Yes.
where that discharge is now, and if there are any water quality units on the site?
I do not believe, just from a visual inspection, that there are any water quality units on the site. The only thing that we were able to find, or as far as we looked at this point, was just these catch basins that you see throughout the site. There's one here, 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 here. There's 5 or 6 of them. 100. Yes, go ahead.
Oh, so does it discharge to the municipal system in probably the state system in 123, or does it discharge to the wetland?
Well, I don't know for sure. We didn't check that far because what we considered for our purposes now is that the water is going to all the catch basins that it was before. Everything appears to be functioning properly. But my expectation, just looking at this, I think the catch basins that are closer to the frontage are going out to the municipal system, and the stuff in the back is going to the wetland one way or another, whether there's subsurface infiltration. I tend to doubt this was built around 2000-ish. So it's probably a free discharge.
So there's no provision for water quality, because typically when somebody comes in for any type of project, redevelopment or not, we look to try to improve water quality. Now, granted, removing several hundred square feet reduces impervious surface. It does not treat pollutants associated with probably, a high turnover of vehicles here with subject to, pollutants such as oil and grease. So I think personally, I would want to know if there are any, first of all, where the discharges go before we think about what we want to do to improve water quality out here.
Yeah, if that's something that the commission is interested in, we can certainly get that information.
Well, we ask these questions of every applicant that comes in, whether it's a redevelopment or not, is, now that you're before us, if there are no provisions for water quality, we typically look for it, because now's our chance to upgrade sites.
Lisa, you probably reviewed the plan as well in Google Drive, but the old plan is stamped 2004, but it is, the date on the plan is 1998. So, and I'm sure, I actually didn't open the notice of intent that was associated with it, but it probably describes some of the features that you're asking about. And I think, so I think, Eric, that can be reviewed and, by us and perhaps by you, and can, clear up these questions, or at least give additional information.
Yeah, certainly, we can get that information. The only point I just wanted to just add on to that is, the only reason that we didn't chase it that far was because, again, as a redevelopment, it would be subject to the maximum extent practicable. And where this is an after the fact situation, we thought, okay, well, we're still, we are having an improvement, we're flowing to the same spot. Didn't know that much more would be warranted, but certainly we can dig more into that if we need to.
Right. So after the fact doesn't absolve you from meeting water quality standards, or at least addressing it to try to improve it.
Understood.
So, yep. Thank you.
Further, further questions from members of the commission? Any questions from anyone in the hearing? And just to review that, you can go to the reactions button, and when you press it, there's a hand raise button, or you can just speak up and to be recognized. But this is not a big project, since it's already after the fact. So what we're not going to be closing any hearings tonight because of the fact that our director is unable to attend, and he'll be reviewing the tape on this. But our next meeting, I believe, is June 10th. Would you be, I assume you would be amenable to continuation until then? And we can also, so we can also deal with the questions that were put forth tonight. So if we're all set with that, we can consider a motion to continue this hearing until June 10th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Joe, seconded by Dan. As is necessary, roll call vote, starting with Paxton and Dan. How do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Joe?
Aye.
Mark, I didn't hear, I don't know if you're.
Joe and I spoke at the same time. I said aye.
Okay. And Lisa and Tama?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll say aye, so motion carries. Thank you, Eric. We'll talk to you next time.
Thank you. I'll get that information and get back to you.
You bet.
Thanks.
Our next new public hearing is file number 250-1052, Wading River Estates. This is a previously presented project, but is now requesting an amendment. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
Yes, I'm here, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Brian Dunn.
All right, and I'm assuming you probably have screen sharing capabilities, so if you can
I'm
present.
gonna have
your-
Justin Williams from my office, share his screen. If, you can give Megan, can you give Justin sharing rights, please?
Hello.
Let me know when you've got the screen ready to go, Justin. Here we go.
All right, we see a plan.
So, members of the commission, my name is Brian Dunn with MBL Land Development and Permitting. I'm here, our offices are located at 5 Bristol Drive in Southeastern. And Justin, you're gonna close your web browser. Or is that mine? Okay, thank you. And I'm the principal of the firm. We're here on behalf of Joan and Scott Stormo. Stormo, as you know, we've been in front of the commission. We do have a DEP file number, as you can see on the screen. We do have an order of conditions for this project. And what we've done is we've come before you recently, within the last few months or so, and discussed the process of filing an amendment to the plans. And it was our understanding that the commission was willing to go along with a review of the request for the amendment. So we've submitted a request for that amendment, and we've prepared a slide presentation to show you and give you an understanding of the differences from the originally approved set of plans to the amended set of plans. We're still looking at the number of units is the same. As you can see from the left-hand side is the original design, which utilizes the existing home at the front of South Worcester Street, and then the units coming into the site, and then the proposed septic system in the middle of the site, and a little bit off the page is the drainage basin that was originally designed. So that you can see where the units were originally laid out and the limit of work and the limit of clearing. On the right-hand side, as you can see, there's been a large reduction in the amount of pavement. There's a reduction in the amount of clearing, limit of work. And there's also been a reduction in the area of the buffer zones with this, revitalized plan amendment. So if you want to go to the next slide. So here are the big differences, key differences from the approved plans in 2022 to what we have now. So we still have the same amount of units, just a different variation of the style of the units. Total of units still at 37, including the house out front. In the originally designed plans, we had 182,948 square feet of impervious area. We have a reduction of that impervious area to 86,812, which is roughly about 96,000 square feet of reduction in pavement. And then the limit of work, which is the big one, we originally had 433,156 square feet of limit of work at clearing, and we've reduced that to 389,614 square feet. So that's a big reduction in area of alteration. One of the key resource areas is riverfront. So we have right now on the approved plans 6,792 square feet of riverfront alteration, with a reduction of that to 3,550 square feet of riverfront area. And one of the things that we looked at as part of the resource area and the turtle nesting area, we originally had and discussed and got approved 14,184 square feet of turtle nesting area. And with this revised set of plans, we are able to increase that turtle nesting area, to 35,193 square feet, which is a big improvement from the originally approved set of plans. With that reduction in pavement that we originally discussed comes the length of road. As you remember, we had originally had pavement going around the units and around the septic system because of the style of the homes and the design of them, as you can see from the left side that Justin's pointing to. So that most of that area is being removed, and the pavement behind the homes are being removed and replaced with lawns and grading and sloping down to that 25-foot no-touch alteration zone, where with a reduction in the retaining wall for the pavement that was going around the back of the units. So that reduction in roadway length is about 1,000 linear feet of roadway that we're reducing as part of this plan amendment request. And the increase in open space. So with these revised set of plans, we've got a 47% increase in open space and landscaping areas that weren't in the originally approved plans. Next slide, please. What we tried to do is highlight the originally approved limit of work. It's in that light purple line, and you can see the limit of grading. You can see the red line, the red highlighted line is that 25-foot buffer zone, and the orange line is the 100-foot buffer zone. And you can see how large the pavement area is going around the back of the units and around the septic system and the grading and the drainage systems that we had originally designed and had approved. And you can see the basin that we had originally approved with the 4 bays and infiltration areas, in and around part of that riverfront area. That riverfront area comes into the site, which is more of that, less that brown line that you see at the top of the screen. Next slide, Justin, please. This plan here really, speaks 1,000 words. It shows the limit of originally approved work in red. It shows the green line with the dashed line inside of it as the new limit of work, and you can see that it comes further into the site and away from that 25-foot alteration zone, as well as the riverfront area. You can see the reduction between the green and the red line is that reduction in riverfront area or alteration. And the big one is the turtle nesting habitat, which is shown in that purple area, which increased in size, as I previously discussed earlier. Next slide. This is a little bit more detailed layout plan to show you, where the units are, where the turtle nesting area, where our proposed drainage is going to the right, or to the east of the site, and the area of clearing the new tree line, which is the limit of work, which is also shown in this plan. As you can see, we are still outside of that 25-foot no alteration zone. Next slide. And this is the site a portion of the site plan, the grading and utility plan that we prepared. As you can see, we do have a stormwater basin for our drainage design. We have 4 bays, water quality structures. There's 3 of them. We have our drainage basin with the 15-foot bench around the top for access and maintenance, which, reduces all of this design here also, reduces the amount of fill by roughly around 20,000 cubic yards of material. And what we tried to do on this slide is show you the difference of the fill in the cut areas for this site. And you can see just from the 2 pictures you have in front of you, with in regards to the earthworks, you can see the difference in the size and the magnitude of the project that has been reduced as part of this plan amendment. And I think I said 20,000 cubic yards, but we have right here about 25% reduction in the amount of fill material that's needed for this project, which also makes it more economically viable for our owners. Next slide. And then these are the new design of the units, the triplexes. They all have one-car garage. They have decks in the back. They will have, basements here. So it makes it a little bit easier for the grading and the design of the site, and help us out with minimizing the amount of fill. Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, that's pretty much our presentation with our request for a plan amendment. If you have any questions, we'd be more than happy to answer them at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, if the fire department has reviewed this new, design, because they have a tendency to like to have an access road behind, the buildings, but, that's obviously not our
Yes.
purview, but, it may, I mean, that's obviously a detail you're gonna have to review.
Yes, we're going to be in front of the planning board, and I'm sure that the fire department will chime in at that time. I can tell you the fire truck access through the site, down the roadway to the cul-de-sac is large enough for the fire truck access to enter and turn around in the site. And
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to review that here. I just, I mean, what you had before, you had payment behind, so they couldn't complain about that. I mean, clearly from our perspective, this it meets the intention of the Wetland Protection Act.
yeah, I think, Mr. Chairman, I think this is a much better plan. It's more environmentally sensitive, and also, with the truck traffic on construction, the amount of fill, it's a lot better plan, because it was really driven by the style of the units before. So the style of the units were all on one level, and here we can, step the foundation in the back of, some of the units, so that we don't have a lot of fill, coming in. So that's where that 25% reduction is coming from.
All right,
I just,
yeah, go ahead.
yeah, first I want to, I appreciate this being more environmentally sensitive change. That section in the northwest of the site is, maybe I misunderstand, but is that line indicating that all that part is within the 25-foot buffer zone? Or how have I misunderstood? Actually, could we see maybe the first slide again?
Yeah, I think it abuts right up against it is what we're gonna see.
Yeah, so what we originally, we had it approved right up against that 25-foot buffer zone within in that area there. So we had some tree clearing right up against that zone, and we had a retaining wall to keep the fill away from that 25-foot that zone, and that we're still maintaining that in our new design. You can see the grading and the retaining wall that we had. Yeah, Justin zooming down. So the red line is the 25-foot buffer zone. The purple line is the limit of previously approved work. So,
And the tan line that's running through some of the sites?
that's the 100-foot buffer zone.
Okay, I see. All right.
And then that brown one to the east, right, he's highlighting, that's where the riverfront area comes into the site. So when we talk about riverfront, part of the riverfront regulations does allow and permit the use of and construction of a detention basin within that within that zone. And that's the area we had the drainage before. Or we wouldn't have gotten an order of conditions. And if you remember, we got this order of conditions with some of the members that are on this commission, and your agent at the time was Jennifer Carlino.
Could you just go over what the common space is gonna be, the open space?
So there's a bunch of different common spaces. So we have a community area here to the rear area of the existing house lot. And then there will be an area of open space and common space above and around the proposed septic system. A very, very large area.
Okay, I assume this request for amendment has gone back to, Natural Heritage for review and approval?
This, as far as I know, I don't remember this being part of Natural Heritage.
But you have a
could be
turtle
wrong.
nesting. You would
Yeah,
have
so
a-
that was, if I may have,
Yeah.
Lisa, this was under the purview of Jennifer at the time when she was the agent. And she thought that part of the turtles and some of the eggs that she had seen, that it would be advisable to have a turtle nesting area. This wasn't a recommendation of Natural Heritage. This was a recommendation of your agent. So
Okay, so
we
you
went
weren't in
along
priority
with her.
habitat?
I'm sorry?
You weren't in priority or estimated habitat
No.
then as far as the state was concerned? Okay,
No.
I got it.
So what we tried to do is, review and discuss that information with Jennifer. We came up with a plan to show that turtle habitat, and she was more than satisfied at that time.
Okay, and the last question, I just want to go over that limit of clearing. Now that you don't have to do so much grading, what's driving that? Just the rear of the units. Are those had an infiltration trench back there?
So there's they're really area drains in the back of those units, so that we can still make sure that any of the runoff that's coming from the back area of those units is being captured, and then that's being brought to our detention basin to the east side of the site.
Okay, so what is the distance between the back of the deck and into the 25? And did you do everything you could to minimize that intrusion right up to the edge of that 25?
It's about 20, 30 feet to give them a little bit of a backyard with like a 2 or 3% slope.
Okay, so you still have to have some grading back there, I see, to get back to grade to 98, is it? I can't read that.
Yeah.
That's correct. So what we try to do is, use the previously approved limit of work, and then, bring that limit of work in where it was, feasibly possible with the regrading of the site and so that we could limit the amount of fill and also, meet the intent of the DEP's rules and regulations on stormwater and alteration of the riverfront areas.
Okay, I don't know.
But there is a reduction in the amount of construction in that area too as well, Lisa, in regards to, we don't have a retaining wall at the back of those units that are up against that 25-foot buffer zone.
Right. Did John recommend this one be reviewed? Oh, okay, status of stormwater peer review is pending. And when does your current order expire? So it was issued in 2022?
And then we requested an extension through this same board, and it was extended through July 28th of 2025.
Okay, so this will obviously just maintain that. It's not extended through this, so it'll just be through the 2025, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're not asking for
Right.
further extension. We're asking for the order of conditions to be amended to
Yep.
reflect these revised plans.
Okay. All right, that's all I had. And just for the record, Julian,
Yeah.
This is corporate, not me. My computer's gonna restart and I have no control over it in 11 minutes and 54 seconds. So I hope, I don't know how long this install is gonna take, but I'm either gonna try to call in or come right back. So,
All right, well,
all right,
so it's just when you say an install, it's an update, is it
Yep.
you know, okay,
and I have no control when it happens. It just randomly happens.
I understand, no problem.
Yeah, okay.
I have a couple quick questions here.
Yes, sir.
Sure, Joe, go ahead.
In this new design, have we accommodated any snow storage on this site? It seems to have squeezed down, so I'm just concerned that there may not be enough space for storage.
There's plenty of room for snow storage on the site, and we've identified them in the layout plan. And all of the snow storage that we've shown is outside the 100-foot buffer zone.
And do we have any drainage in those areas? I'm struggling seeing collection.
Yeah, most of those areas that we've shown are really landscaped areas. I mean, if you know, there's no intent for any of the snow to be pushed into the basin. So there's really no provisions for a snowplow to get down to the basin area.
So
any
just
of
to
the
be,
snow- any of the
just to
snow
be
storage
clear.
areas would be west of the basin and inside of the landscaped areas that we have shown on the plans.
just to be clear, there is no catch basin drainage system on this site.
No, there are catch basins on this site to take the storm water underground and bring it to the forebay and through the water quality structures that we've proposed.
But are they associated with the road system or because I see, I guess.
There's
There's
None
catch
of them are in
basins-
the road.
there's catch basins at the cul-de-sac. There's catch basins in the middle of the site right there.
Okay, yeah.
Where Justin was just shown. There's a lot less catch basins from the original plan.
And then the front of the site remained the same with the trench drain at the entrance to the underground chambers behind the existing house through a water quality unit as well.
All right. Further questions?
There's a chat, Mr. Chairman.
Right, there's a gentleman with his hand up, and so we'll go to him next. But the commission members all set with questions for the moment. And there's a computer labeled Rob Distel, I guess it is. Or,
Yeah, can you guys hear me okay?
we can hear
Yes.
you loud and clear,
Okay.
so go ahead.
Yeah.
And,
Thanks for including folks easily remotely. I appreciate that. I'm a resident down the street. I'm not that close to this. I'm catching up on it now that it's under further development. I was just curious, and maybe this is a question for a later time, but I was just curious if plans are approved by the commission and the town eventually, when does the overall project get started? And about how long would it take to complete, let's say, the new plans? Just as an estimate, that's all. Just curious.
well, let me just comment and then the applicant can comment.
Sure.
All of these, I mean, the issue as to whether they get built depends on the economic conditions and, you know, the likelihood of economic success. So it's an open question as to when things get started. It depends on financing and all of that.
I
But
see.
maybe the applicant can further comment on that.
So through the chair, Mr. Chairman, it is my understanding that you know, right now, technically we could start work with the permits in hand right now. Clear the site and start working on the proposed project the way that it sits and has been approved as it is right now. It is my understanding that our client would like to do a plan amendment to reduce the amount of construction cost and also start to build this project as soon as feasibly possible. They're itching to get going on this. So they want to start construction right away as soon as the plan amendments have been issued by the town.
All right, and just comment on that, as you might have heard from our prior hearing, that our director, John Thomas, is not able to attend. So we're clearly not going to be able to close this tonight. And also there's the outstanding issue of the stormwater peer review. Even though it's changed, a project of this magnitude requires a little help.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, who is the company doing the stormwater review, please?
I'm afraid I do not know that. That is something that John would have been discussing. So we at
So,
least we
Can I
need to
comment
have-
on that, Julianne?
Oh, certainly. Go ahead, Meg.
We've sent it out for proposal. We haven't gotten an estimate back. We sent it out to Pat Brennan. If he doesn't respond by tomorrow, we'll send it out to potentially Horsley Witten or Weston and Sampson.
Does that help you, Mr. Phil?
Yeah, that's fine. I just don't, I mean, our concern is that, time is of the essence as well. And I would hate to be waiting another month to hear back from somebody, on a cost proposal. So, Megan, if you could, ping those other companies, to make sure that they're, moving forward with a proposal. But the other thing is that proposal doesn't have to be reviewed and approved by this commission.
Yes, so I will do that, but it is their busy season. So a lot of them are being slow to respond. It's just the way of it at the moment.
Julian,
Yes?
this is a site I think that we could do a visit on if we could have it staked and actually do a board visit here.
Okay, that sounds fine. This is actually something we have reviewed in the past, but it's we can certainly do a quick site visit. I think we will.
We have a lot of new members, and I think it's a site that has some uniqueness to it that could be a good education here and really get us to a point where we know what we're looking at.
Yeah, I agree, and to maybe save a little bit of time on the staking, Joe, I think what may be important is the limit of work on the northwest side, because that's closest to jurisdiction. I don't necessarily think we need the rest of it staked out, because it's out of jurisdiction. The part in the riverfront is allowed, a stormwater feature in riverfront, so I don't know how much we have to scrutinize that area, but I think that the northwest side limit of work in blue, perhaps, within our jurisdiction would be helpful.
I would agree with that if we could also just stake the basin also.
Okay, do we want the top of the basin? You want the top of the basin? You want the outer rim, outer edge of the basin, not the bottom? Yeah, there you go.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
So, I mean, as the applicant, this may facilitate your starting the project. So is that acceptable to you that we can review this on site?
Yeah, I mean, we don't mind doing, I'll discuss with the client about staking things out and having you access the site. There's no reason to prohibit you from doing that or requesting this information. I just want to remind the commission that this is a plan amendment. This is not a new notice of intent.
Agreed, but as Joe pointed out, there are members who have not had the opportunity to see this site previously, and this is a pretty significant project, so I think it's a fair request. We will need to coordinate it when our director returns, because he will likely need to be a part of this, but this can be, I think, coordinated through Megan as well. So, Megan, you'll send out an email for availability and suggested dates?
Yes, I can do that.
Excellent.
Okay, and then once we get it staked out, we'll send John and Megan an email in regards to that it being staked out, and then schedule a meeting after that on site.
Yeah,
The other thing is, I just want to remind you, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission, if more than 3 members of the commission are present at one time, this needs to be a posted meeting for the public, to the public, that you're meeting at one place at one time.
actually, there's a variation on that. We are allowed to do site visits. We are not allowed to privately discuss the details without then reviewing those details at the meeting. So, if we have a site visit, we will be doing a blow by blow when it is opened again at the public meeting, and that is consistent with the open meeting law.
Okay, I'm not aware of that, but okay, if you say so, Mr.
Well,
Chairman.
you mentioned Jennifer Carlino, and she, I mean, I think fortunately all of our directors have been sticklers for avoiding violating the open meeting law. And so we are very, very careful about that. John has reminded of that. So you can be comfortable that we're not going to be doing something that's going to violate the open meeting law. And we will review the site visit once a public meeting is again open.
Okay,
Lillian, may I speak?
Sure, please.
Oftentimes the commission, their timeline doesn't match up as well, so oftentimes the commission can't meet up as a whole anyway, so open meeting law is not broken.
So I think if there are no further questions, we can continue this hearing until June 10, and we can arrange the site visit offline. So unless there are further questions or discussion, we're ready for a motion for continuation of the hearing for file number 250, the amendment for file number 250-1052.
So moved.
Second.
So we have a motion made by Dan, seconded by Joe for a continuation of this hearing. Paxton and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Mark and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
And Lisa, I think, has unfortunately disappeared because of her computer. Tama, how do you vote?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So the motion carries. So thank you, guys. We'll look forward to talking with you next time around.
okay, thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
You bet.
I know.
So we're back now with completed new public hearings for this session and continued public hearings. The next continued public hearings relate to a site on Crane Street, file numbers 250, 1152, 53, 54. And this is continued for, I believe, prior 3 meetings or so. Do we have a representative of the applicant, or did they request a continuation?
Well, I'm here, Mr. Chairman, Evan Watson, W Engineering, representing the applicant.
Okay, so I'm assuming you have screen sharing capabilities, and there were a few peer review comments that, I think your firm responded to, so if you could just review those, that would be great.
Well, yes, so thank you very much. Again, Evan Watson here, representing the applicant. We've made some progress on the plans. I think you guys will be happy with what we've come up with. First, we took some input from the board. There was concern about the location of the shared driveway and the associated grading being approaching the 25-foot no disturb zone. The previous plans, everything was outside the 25, shown here in purple. But you can see that we've moved over the shared driveway. We've pulled back the limit of grading so that we have a much greater distance around here to the resource area. I think the closest spot may be this for stormwater, and it's about 63 feet away from the wetland. The other thing that we were asked to do was to evaluate. Oh, I'm gonna let Lisa in. Oh, do I have to do that? All right, there I did. I guess I'm the host, so. I don't know if you want me to wait until Lisa make sure she's up and running.
We can do that because she has oh, there we are. Lisa, you're
Oh,
back.
I see her. She's back. Great. All right, good news. So we did have a vernal pool evaluation done by LEC, our wetlands specialist consultant. And John Thomas did want to make sure that they were using dip netting as well as visual observation. So they went out on 2 dates, April 19th and May 2nd. And they're saying that based on the assessment, it does not qualify for vernal pool certification. I can scroll down to some photographs that they took. It was a very, very wet spring. Probably the wettest on record. And so as such, there was some standing water in some areas. They did find a few egg masses there, but because the water was fluctuating so much, they were likely exposed to dry conditions, and all the embryos died and they were covered in algae. So I think some frogs got excited when they saw some water there, laid some eggs, and then they dried out and came back again. John did say that it would be prudent to still recognize this as maybe a potential vernal pool. So what we've done, we've again taken that into consideration from the last meeting. So again, that was also part of the reason why we moved a lot of the grading away. And then part of the peer review, we treated this as a critical area. So we made sure that all of our stormwater BMPs did not have a discharge up through the 100-year storm.
So the area you were just referring to,
Yes.
can you point that out on that? I just need, so that area, okay, got it.
Yes, that's this large area. The other thing to note, it was brought up, let's see. They did do an assessment of small depression on lot A. It was dry on both days, no standing water or anything else. So, and I did go to the site also and looked at that, and there was no signs of any vegetation, etc. So they took a look at that for any signs of vernal pool habitat, and there's nothing there. And then let's see, our stormwater comments. Essentially, he saw a few discrepancies in the calculation versus what was on the plan. So we've made those adjustments so that they all match. He asked that we consider the site in a critical area, being that it's not in zone 2, but it is in the town's water protection overlay district. So we addressed that, again, making sure that we had no discharges to critical areas. And then there was a discrepancy between the calculation and the roof infiltrators, which we fixed. We're basically treating the stormwater for each one of these houses goes to a roof infiltrator system, and then the impervious areas from the site are directed towards some bioinfiltration areas. So he asked that we, let's see if I find the detail sheet, add a detail for the bioretention area here, which shows that it has plantable soil and then a free draining layer below. And that's in accordance with the stormwater management handbook. So he liked that detail as well. Just to go over things, again, this is just lot A with no resource areas on it or buffer zones. But we do have a rain garden / bioinfiltration area here. And we have our dry well for the roofs. Lot B, you can see we moved the shared driveway a little bit further away from the resource area, pulled all the grading away. You can see this line right here is the 50-foot buffer, or 50 feet from the wetlands. There's no 50-foot buffer, but you know, we're 50 feet away or more than. We've increased the size of the stormwater management BMPs so that there's no discharge and everything can infiltrate. And then, I should also mention that we, let's see. We reduced the amount of earthwork that's within the natural heritage area as well, and pulled away any infrastructure out of this, just a little bit of grading and conversion of woods to lawn. So this is lot C, same thing. We pulled everything away and we've moved the infiltration for the roof to the other side of the lot. Then finally, lot D, we've increased the size of the biofiltration area again. In the previous iteration, we just had maybe like 0.1 CFS coming out of this pipe in the 100-year storm, but now there's nothing coming out there in any of the design storms. We did have correspondence with Natural Heritage. They were just questioning, they wanted to see some photographs of these areas, and they wanted to see if we were to be using this area to do some of the earthwork to access the site. This area on this is currently owned by the owner. It's in agricultural, and there is some existing access roads. So they asked for some photographs and things about on that side as well. So haven't heard back from them. Doesn't necessarily include you guys from acting, although I know you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, that we wouldn't be doing that tonight anyhow. But so that's the presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions or hear any input from board members or the audience.
I mean, maybe we should do this discussion after we complete our questions. So I'll hold off. Any commission members have specific questions about this project and the changes that were presented?
Julie, can I ask a question real quick?
You certainly can. Sure. Go ahead.
Evan, I might have missed it. Did you provide an isolated land subject to flooding calc for lot A?
Oh, I didn't specifically put it out there, but in the drainage report, in the existing condition, the water that flows to that spot is modeled, and there is that is able to infiltrate everything up to the 100-year storm. So there is no water, there's no flooding or anything to that spot at all.
Okay, thank you.
No, good question. I apologize for not pointing that out a little more specifically.
Can you elaborate on that? So you did the calculations to show that it wasn't ILSF? Can you zoom in, first of all, on existing conditions of that area, if you
Yeah,
would?
sure, right here. So right now we have this wooded area on Lot A, and a lot of this area flows to this depression. It was modeled for the 210 and 100-year storm. Now the ILSF calculations are for a smaller storm, and then you can, based off of how much water that holds, be it a quarter acre foot, would determine whether or not that's an isolated land subject to flooding. But in all cases, there was no or almost no water being generated to that spot, and there was no storage of any stormwater, et cetera, to that spot.
So I guess well, if you go through the stormwater handbook, the first thing you determine is whether or not it can hold the quarter acre foot. Then you run the 100-year to develop the extent or the boundary of ILSF. So the first question I have is, does it qualify based on the quarter acre foot? Can it hold, so there's the different criteria is there's no inlet, there's no outlet. And then it's, can it hold a quarter acre foot? Then you run the 100-year to develop the extent of it. So I guess if you walk through it, the first question is whether it can hold the quarter acre foot.
I don't have that information. I could look it up, but that's
Okay.
a little technical to do here at the meeting. So I
Right.
can certainly show that. I didn't go through that just because when we actually looked at what kind of stormwater is generated off this site in the 210 and 100-year storms, it's essentially zero because it's all A soil and it's all wooded. So no water was going to it, whether or not it was whether or not it could hold a quarter acre foot or could not hold a quarter acre foot. There's essentially zero runoff in the existing condition.
Right, but that's the second part. So if you look to the hydrology handbook, there's a step-by-step process that walks you through how to determine ILSF.
Yep, it's
So
right in
if
the
you
act.
could-
So I
yeah,
can type that up.
Okay, thank you.
I'm confident it doesn't meet it, but I just didn't write it up as a separate item, which I can do. I mean, considering we won't be able to close the hearing tonight anyways, I can provide that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so any other questions from commission members? And it looks like we have a question from an audience member. So I'm not seeing any commission member questions. Computer labeled Neil Dion. If you want to go ahead and ask a question, or I see it disappeared. So there you go. All right.
Neil Dion, I live at 171 Pine Street. I've spoke before at the meeting regarding this property. The first thing I want to mention, and this is information for the commission, I don't know if it's in the report or not, but the study at the swamp area for the vernal pool, they came out on May 2nd. Now, according to the Wetlands Protection Act, the window of opportunity is the first week of March till about April 15th or so. So, in my opinion, that was missed. So you didn't really get an accurate assessment of the area. Can anybody elaborate on that, or am I mistaken?
Well, actually, I'm going to pursue that issue as well. I mean, just for my own knowledge base, because so with your permission, I'll go ahead and go into my question about that. So the area of that wetland system, what's the approximate area in acres? I assume it's nearly an acre, or I haven't calculated the whole.
I can measure it real quick.
Well, it doesn't have to be precise. I'm just wondering approximately.
I think we talked about it last time, and I think it's about an acre.
Okay. So I mean, you made a statement stating, that it's not functioning as a vernal pool, and yet it's a wetland. And I guess just conceptually, maybe, and I haven't thought of this previously, maybe you can explain the difference between a wetland that is not functioning as a vernal pool and a vernal pool. Because it was my thought that any wetland can provide the same functions as a vernal pool, but a vernal pool doesn't have the hydrologic connections, but it does have the seasonal water to allow it to support the biology of a vernal pool. So maybe someone can clarify for me, because I'm not sure I understand the issue.
Mr. Chairman, if I could talk, it's the only thing I have. I'm not an expert in vernal pool certification. I did get the report that says it's not a vernal pool from them. But what I will say is, if this were a vernal pool, there's certain things that we must do to make sure that we don't impact it. And in the act, it says that the limit of the vernal pool is, if there was a vernal pool found inside here somewhere, like where there was a nesting area and the criteria for vernal pool was met, it would extend 100 feet around that up to the limit of the resource area. So the vernal pool would not extend beyond the limits of the resource area. And then the things that we need to do to meet that would be to consider it what's called a critical area. And with that, we need to employ certain BMPs. Those have been employed here. We have bioinfiltration areas and roof infiltration areas. And then we do not have any discharges via a pipe or direct discharge or otherwise directly towards that wetland. Again, if it were to be considered a vernal pool. And then the other thing we did just to help out is we pulled everything away. So if this was considered a vernal pool or not considered a vernal pool, what I'm proposing here meets the performance standards that would be required regardless of whether it is or is not.
All right, but Lisa, I hate to put you on the spot, but maybe you can help clarify this for me. I mean, it was my understanding that a vernal pool supports certain biological functions, a series of insect life cycles as well as amphibian life cycles, due to the nature of water that comes, enough water comes in during the springtime when all of those cycles are occurring. But it was also my thought that these things happen all the time in wetlands. Is that a statement that you would agree or disagree with, Lisa? Or
I would tend to disagree. So not all wetlands are viable locations for vernal pools, because what they're looking for are deep pockets that stay wet to keep the eggs viable. And I think that's what they ran into here, is that the eggs were laid, but then the water dried up. So it wasn't a great habitat for the vernal pool. Now, that said, and I think this is where John Thomas was going with this, that's not to say another year the water would stay longer in a certain location and perhaps be viable for that egg mass. So I think that's why he's saying it still potentially could be. And I think
yeah, I understand what you're saying, but if you have a wetland area in general, there is part of it that has water a lot of the time, which would be potentially the drainage channel. Although in it, presumably, I mean, we're kind of getting into the weeds, but I would be puzzled. I mean, I understand. So what you're saying is that's at the surface, that's dry most of the time.
I have some more information for that too. The vernal pool, the idea is that there's certain species that lay their eggs and are vulnerable to other predators, such as like mosquito larvae or dragonfly larvae, fish, other things that need to be wet all the time. So in a vernal pool habitat situation, the water rises in the early spring when those other predators are not there, so that when they lay their eggs and they're vulnerable, they're not predated by those other species. And then the water dries out, and then the amphibians are able to mature and flee the area. In an area that's a wetland that has standing water all the time, those species that could predate on the vulnerable eggs can thrive and grow. So that's why a wetland, although it's a great habitat for all these types of wetland animals, is not specific to those type of breeding amphibians that require like a vernal pool habitat. I'm hoping that answers your question about the difference.
Well, I just am surprised something that an acre size area doesn't have anything in it within that could have functioned as vernal pool, but that's fine. I mean, it's still a wetland. It's still protected, as you pointed out.
Right, but I think the key here is that LEC did find an egg mass, which to me says that at some point, maybe a different season, maybe a different year, maybe even a wetter year, which I can't imagine, those egg masses may have been viable. This year they were not. So I think in the spirit of it, it sounds like they are treating this as if it were a vernal pool. And that's the most we can ask of them.
And I think Mr. Dion made an accurate point that they potentially were late to the party in order to assess this.
But well, the fact that they found egg mass still tells me it's still a potential. So is it certifiable this year? No, but that's not to say next year it could be. So that's why I think we have to keep it on the PVP. So if you look at the DEP information on the web, on the mapping, you have PVPs, which the state maps as potential vernal pools, and you have CVPs, which is certified vernal pools. So this needs to be a PVP, which is a potential vernal pool. And we could ask them in the order of conditions to, every year to check for the next 5 years to see if it's certifiable, and then ask them to certify it, which we should probably do.
Well, also in the ideal time frame of when to look for it. So there is a question on the board computer labeled Lois Hanley. Oh, okay. Lois, stand by. We'll go back to Mr. Dion.
I'd like to also mention that there were 4 egg masses found. And the requirement to certify the vernal pool is 5. Now, and exactly what I'm talking about, late to the party, because they came out on May 2nd, which is just late. So I just wanted to interject that.
Well, I think your point is well taken, that it's still an open question. It has to be labeled a potential vernal pool.
Okay, thank you. My second question is the driveway. That driveway has moved awfully close to my property line. And Evan, do you have the distance between my property line and the edge of the driveway?
And let me move to the other plan with more details so I can get a better measurement.
Right.
$38 feet, 37 and change.
Okay, so that's within the limit. But has the water runoff from my property been included in those collection areas?
Yes, it has. So when we evaluate these drainage components, we do what's called subcatchment area, and it does include any area from offsite properties that drain towards it, in both pre-development and post-development.
Okay, because my concern is if something happens over there where, you know, it gets all clogged and it doesn't drain properly, my property's gonna flood.
You don't have any concern here. There's this property here is lower than your property. There is an operation and maintenance plan there to direct the homeowner to clean these as needed. And then there is an emergency overflow if, for instance, if we have like a very frozen time period and then we get a large rain, or there's something that might cause it to overflow, it would overflow. Again, in a 100-year storm or greater or emergency, away from your property. Because we're at about elevation 73 here, and your site is about elevation 78. So it's a good 5 feet lower.
But, okay, if you're gonna direct the homeowner to clean that up or maintenance, what homeowner are you directing it to? Who's gonna be in charge of that? Because you got two homeowners. They're gonna start butting heads and have a fight of who's gonna be responsible for this?
Well, there'll be an easement for both of these homeowners to be using this driveway. And in that document, it would identify, because again, the driveway itself needs to be maintained as part of the shared driveway, and that would be part of that component as well.
Yeah, all right. I'm skeptical on that one. But thank you.
She all set, Mr. Dion? We can go on to the next question.
I'm all set. Thank you.
All right, you bet. So the computer labeled Lois Hanley, if you still have a question, now is the time. Otherwise, we are going to move on. So any, oh yes, okay. So hand is up, go ahead.
She's muted. Maybe I can.
Yeah, I don't know. You able to take your computer off mute?
Julian, while we're waiting, I just had a quick follow-up question.
Yeah.
About the access. Can you go over where the access is going to be again during construction term access? I think you mentioned through another property.
There's an existing road that comes through this site over to here. I could probably bring up.
I'm just wondering where it exits because we're going to be concerned with tracking from the site. And so where does that road lead? And do you need to cut any vegetation in any other, so are there any other wetlands on that other site?
No, there's an existing road that does not need to be modified, and there's, so it's here on Crane Street. And there's an existing paved apron here that goes up beyond the high point, and then it turns into a gravel road, and then it turns into a dirt road that accesses the site. So right now, anybody can come and go on this, well, not anybody, but you know, the homeowner, the landowner. So it is protected here. If you wanted to put in a condition that requires, you know, obviously any tracking that we do on any of the roads, we'll make sure we have cleaned up, etc.
So I'm going to ask you to show that somewhere on the plan coming out onto Crane Street, if you're going to use it for construction access, and show a stabilized exit somewhere. Maybe you want to turn the last section, instead of ripping up pavement, what you probably want to do is take that first 100 feet of gravel and turn that into a stabilized exit if you don't have that already on there.
Yeah. So we have stabilized exits. at each
But
of the
that's,
sites
that's
here.
not on Crane Street though, right?
Right. Yep.
That's not at the
And
street,
then-
so.
And then here, this is all paved. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but this is all paved and stabilized up to the high point and beyond. So anything that would come down here is on a paved, stabilized surface coming through
Right,
here.
but you're
And
gonna be
then-
tracking it onto Crane Street. So wherever that pavement ends, you mentioned maybe gravel? So
There
you'd
is,
wanna-
there's,
So that's where you'd wanna put your exit. So that first stretch of gravel going to, I'm driving down that road, the first 100 feet, maybe you wanna take that gravel out and put a stabilized exit there, so that by the time they get onto the pavement, they won't be tracking it onto Crane Street. And you
Very
could
good.
probably show that on the plans that the contractor, we can approve it, because he's going to the site, so we have to make sure Crane Street's gonna be free of any sediment. So it should
Very
be
good.
part of your SWIP.
All right, so now, computer label Lois Hanley.
Yeah, so, hi, my name is Eric. I'm speaking for my mother. I live with her here at 50 Crane Street.
Yeah,
And we're discussing the same situation that Neil Dion was speaking about the vernal pool that's out in the back, supposed vernal pool. I've lived here for 50 years, and that area in the back, most of my lifetime has always been full of water. I've been back there as a child, into my teens, collecting frogs, turtles, and salamanders and all kinds of things. And we do have varying depths that go between that on that pond. And sometimes years are a little bit drier and sometimes they're a little bit wetter.
all
but
right,
then-
now, let me just ask for clarification. The area you're referring to, is that the approximate acre wetland that we were discussing previously, or is this now a different area?
No, that's correct. The acre that you were previously speaking about.
All right, and I think, we've decided that even though the statement has been made, it doesn't seem to be a vernal pool, we find that hard to believe. So that we are, requesting it be treated as a potential vernal pool, and the applicant is doing that. And
Okay.
in future years, it may well be that it is in fact a vernal pool established.
Yeah, Mom just wanted me to make sure that I clarified this that we got our voice spoken in about that as well.
I understand.
Okay, that was it. That's all
All
I
right,
had.
but I think we are in agreement that the proper assessment has yet to be done. And
Yeah, and I think that when they start clearing trees and to put these properties in, we're gonna have some wet issues that are gonna come towards our property as well as that vernal pool area. And we have a little depression between us and our neighbor, which I think that's gonna create a little bit of a problem because we have a storm drain down there that handles the overflow water that comes in. And, so I don't know how that property is gonna work that out, or if they're just gonna fill it and then we're gonna get flooded, or my neighbor's gonna get flooded because we're on the elevations that we pitched down, how they're gonna manage that storm drainage system. Those are just a few questions that we had on our list, and I know that we don't have to discuss all this tonight, but I just wanted to express those things so that you guys can talk about them.
Well, all right, so it was my impression, Evan, that no drainage would go in the direction of the rear of the property, which I believe is where 50 Crane Street is that, or maybe,
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, if I could just ask the abutter is this 50 Crane Street here? Is this your property?
well, we don't have the plan up, so I think we need to get the plan up
Oh,
again.
I'm sorry. Yeah, let me put the plan back up. I'm sorry, I'm speaking to myself here.
So we're the trapezoidal property that you see on the plan. Let me see if I can.
This here?
Right next to the access road.
Yeah, we're right next to the access road. So we
So
are.
it's further down here.
Yeah, that trapezoid right there.
Okay. Yeah, so all that is at a higher elevation than where we are. There is a ridge right in here. So any of the stormwater for this site flows in this direction, and we're not looking to fill in any existing depressions or anything along Crane Street. So the stormwater evaluation that we did took into account any stormwater that's flowing onto our property, and any areas that flow away from our property. We made sure that there's a properly sized, what they call a best management practice, or a BMP there, so that we've actually reduced the amount of runoff that comes off the site. And then during construction, we'll be required to have a stormwater pollution prevention plan that will follow to make sure during construction everything is above board as well.
Okay. All right, well, I'll review those plans when they come out and then have questions when you develop them.
All right, well, but I think as the applicant just emphasized, there's, and in fact, the requirements of the Wetland Protection Act is no water can be shed to the adjacent property as part of the development.
Yeah, and it wouldn't be my property that I'm more concerned about as much as my neighbors because of the way that flows down. But if they can capture that water so that it goes, and so is that stormwater going to go through the current culvert that they have to drain out into the river? Is that where that's intended to go?
So right now there's water that is a high point about here, and it flows down through this way to this low point. And I think there's, like you said, some type of pipe or something up higher.
Yeah, there's a storm drain right there.
Yeah, that goes that way. So we're leaving that low spot alone. You can see the limited clearing there. And what we've done is we've taken all of our driveway and we're pitching it into our own little depression over here, which is sized so that all the water will actually infiltrate into the ground. This site actually has very good sandy soils. And then all of our roof runoff will be infiltrated into an infiltration unit behind the house. So all this water heads this way. And then there is a small amount of water basically from here that goes into that depression, but it will ultimately be less than what it was right now. Okay. And that's what we're charged with, you know, in the act, and just as an engineer to make sure that all the abutters don't see an increase in stormwater.
Okay. Because we get, because we're about similar elevation to that swamp that's out in the back, you know, when the groundwater rises, we get through our foundation walls, through at the footing, you know, to the stem walls, it leaks through there a little bit on high water storms. So we don't need any more infiltration of water that's already building up.
All right. Well, you kind of summed up the intention of the Wetland Protection Act, and that's really the summary of this whole process, to be sure that neighbors are not impacted by new development.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
All right. Very good.
Thanks for your question.
So if there's no further questions or discussion, as we mentioned, we're not going to be able to close tonight, and with your permission, we'll entertain a motion to continue these collective hearings until June 10th.
I have another question, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, that Mr. Dion.
It's not really a question. I want to piggyback on the access road. That road and that area behind there cannot be used to access for construction. That is APR land. It's restricted. It will require a special permit through the Massachusetts Department of Agriculture. And chances are that they are not going to allow that. So I just want to throw that out there. So your options are going to be from Pine Street and Crane Street to access these properties for construction.
Very well.
That's all I got. Thank you.
All right, very good. So I think we're at the continuation motion step.
Yeah,
So
Mr.
moved.
Chairman, I would request that the board continue to the next available hearing.
Okay, so, Dan, made a motion to June 10th,
Second.
seconded by Lisa. So beginning with, Dan and Mark,
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa and Paxton,
Aye.
Aye.
and Joe and where is our last member?
Tom, I had to get off.
Julian, I have a conflict of interest, abstaining.
Okay, but we lost, lost a member. Tama. Tama had to leave, is that what you said?
Yeah, she had a conflict, she had a meeting,
Okay.
but she might come back.
All right, so, we have Dan as a yes, Joe as an abstention, and Paxton. Was that an aye, Paxton?
Yep. I,
All right, and then Mark and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. So, Dan, you got all that?
Oh, I'm sure Megan does.
Okay. Well, Tama dropped out, so that was the only. All right, so our next item is, file number 250-1144, 0 Reservoir Street, a 14 lot subdivision. Do we have a representative of the applicant, or is this a request for continue?
They requested to continue until the 10th.
All right, looking for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Dan, seconded by Joe. Dan and Paxton,
Aye.
Aye.
Joe and Lisa,
Aye.
Aye.
and Mark,
Aye.
and I'll throw in an aye. And Tama is absent. File number 250-1151, 300 South Washington Street. Do we have a representative of the applicant?
Yes, we do. Mr. Chairman, again, Eric Dias, registered professional engineer for Strong Point Engineering Solution, representing the applicant for 300 South Washington.
And you'll have to refresh my memory as to what the outstanding items on this project were.
Absolutely. So we were last before you folks on this project, and I think it was your first meeting in April. At that time, we were going to peer review, and I don't believe we had started that process yet. So Pat Brennan did the peer review on this, and we've continued subsequently just a few times to be able to address his comments and be productive when we got back here. So Pat had a couple of very minor comments. Really, the primary comment that he noted was that our surface infiltration basins were previously proposed within 50 feet of the wetland boundary. And he's absolutely right. Under the DEP stormwater management guidance, they're supposed to be at least 50 feet away. So we reconfigured those basins to be more than 50 feet away from the boundary of the bordering vegetated wetland. We revamped the drainage report to account for all of those things. All of the drainage still works as advertised, and I think we talked before, we have much more actually on this proposed design in the way of stormwater recharge and water quality than we're actually required. Just so happens it ended up working out very well that way. So we're in compliance with that. There were a couple of other things that Pat suggested just as updates and improvements to the construction sequencing in the O&M plan with regard to the timing of getting the surface basin stabilized, to have that happen sooner in the construction process than later. So we added some notation to that effect to the construction sequence, and added some requirements for mowing these basins, in the O&M plan. Really, those are the finer thing, that really all that we changed. We did receive a letter from Pat indicating that he is satisfied with our revisions. And he feels that we hit the mark on this one. So that's really where we're at.
And our Director, John Thomas, indicates on his report that he agrees, and we will continue this hearing, but likely be able to act on an order of conditions next time.
Great.
So questions from commission members? Or for that matter, anybody? And if not, we can consider a motion to continue this hearing until June 10th.
So moved.
Second.
I think Mark got the second by a microsecond. So motion by Dan, seconded by Mark. Dan and Mark, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa and Paxton
Aye.
Aye.
and Joe?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. So, carries. So, I don't think you're gonna have to attend next meeting, but you can check with the office, Eric. Because I think it's primarily, we're happy, we close, and then we act on an order of conditions.
Fantastic. I will definitely touch base with Megan and John and see what we can do.
All right, very good.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We are now up to our request for certificates of compliance, and this is a little bit bumpy because the first request, the 250-585, 61 West Main Street, the Honeydew Donuts, or Honeydew, I don't know what they call themselves now. It's still kind of got some questions. So I personally would favor just tabling this till next time. We can certainly close it out next time.
Why not?
Yeah, I mean, this is, the actual work on this needs to be reviewed to know what was in the ground with regard to act on the new proposal.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah,
just to clarify, this request for certificate of compliance is actually related to an order of conditions that was issued from the project in 2004 that was intended to expand and create a larger building that never went forward. So this order it's expired, and it's just sort of hanging out there for work that never happened. It's not related to the after the fact notice of intent that we discussed earlier tonight. So certainly it's kind of 6 of one, half another. If the commission would like to continue, I think the two items that are on the agenda tonight kind of go hand in hand.
Right.
I just wanted to clarify that it was a different matter.
yeah, and I agree with that. I agree with that. But there will be nothing lost.
Well, I agree.
Having John available to say everything is all set, we can just go ahead and do it. That's the missing voice that I don't want to ignore.
No, absolutely, I agree.
And the next item, I'm not sure because there's no pressing need to do that one either, but, okay, Megan, sure, go ahead.
I apologize. I guess I thought we were moving on to the next one, so I jumped the gun.
That's fine. You do a good job jumping the gun though. All right, so Eric, you're happy that we're just gonna table this and deal with it next meeting?
Absolutely, that's fine.
All right, very good. And so we will move on to 250-1083, 60 Rear Reservoir Street, concerning installation of an in-ground pool. So Megan, tell me your thoughts.
Just how you were saying that you may want to table it until John Thomas gets back, which if that's what the commission prefers. I just know that this one is in the middle of trying to close a house, that has been put off a couple times because of the outstanding COC. So this one is a little bit more time sensitive.
And it's my understanding that the completion of this in-ground pool has been long done. So I personally would have no problem having the commission act on it, but I can't because I have a shared border with this property. So I will recuse as far as the vote goes, or abstain from the vote. But if other commission members are happy that it has been, I think, determined by John to be fine. Let me see what his report was.
Yeah, Julian, his note says that he inspected it on May 14th.
Oh, yes.
Recommends a certificate be issued.
So I think I have to abstain, but I can certainly entertain the motion if other people are comfortable acting on that note.
Yep, I'll make a motion to issue a full certificate of compliance for file 250-1083.
Second.
All right, motion made by Lisa, seconded by Paxton. Lisa and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Paxton and Joe?
Aye.
Aye.
And Mark?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an abstention. And so the certificate of compliance passes for that project. And in the middle of it, I lost my agenda. So we now are at orders of conditions for initially 360 South Worcester Street, file number 250-1143. And the sun has gone down. I'm going to step away and turn on some lights.
And yes, if you're wondering at home, this is live.
Well, I just couldn't read clearly, so I gotta say, I'm gonna sing the praises of this new organization of the orders of conditions, because the only unique items on this draft are in the findings. Other than that, I mean, I'm totally happy with the draft. Anybody have specific comments to amend it?
I'll make a motion to issue the order conditions for file, where are we here? 250-1143 as written.
Second.
Motion by Lisa, seconded by Mark. Lisa and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Paxton and Joe?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. Motion carries. And next item is order of conditions for file number 250-1155, 18 Country Club Way, involving installation of a garage, I believe. And again, the only unique items on this are in the findings, and I have no suggested changes.
I'll make a motion to issue order conditions for file 250-1155 as written.
Second.
So we have a motion by Lisa, seconded by Paxton. Lisa and Dan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Paxton and Joe.
Aye.
Aye. And Mark?
Aye.
And I'll throw in an aye. We have draft minutes for May 6th. One very long section for Joe Reservoir Street, but everything else was pretty straightforward.
I just had two small typos I happened to catch. On page 4 for 250-1151, underneath that it says motion to continue. It's a different file number. 144 or 1144.
Great, I didn't see that. Where
Page 4 for the 300 South Washington Street, 250-1151.
I see it.
Yeah. And then, very minor, but the numbering at the bottom on page 4 into 5 for 1138 starts with 3 and 4. Should be 1 and 2. That's my nitpicky changes for the day.
Okay.
I think you stole Dan's thunder there, Mark.
Sorry, Dan.
That's all right, Mark. It's good to get a rest.
I probably wouldn't caught the file number 1 if I hadn't been filling out Mullins forms for all of those. So.
Yeah.
I see. All right. Suitable corrections. Any other questions, comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the draft minutes for May 6th, 2024, as discussed.
And did I hear a second coming from Dan?
Why not?
Okay. I heard a noise. I wasn't sure where it came from.
Yeah, it's just, just some minor stylistic things. Some backwards the little mark for the possessive S is apostrophe S is the wrong way, and then there's some things that are.
Well, you can send.
I'll just talk to. Yeah, I'll send them. I'll talk to Megan when I see her.
We'll all agree
So
with
not to.
All right. So let's see. With a motion by Lisa, seconded by Dan. So Dan and Joe, how do you vote?
Aye.
Aye.
Lisa and Paxton.
Aye.
Aye.
Mark.
Abstain. I wasn't present.
All right, and I'll throw in an aye. So we're now at the spot in the agenda where we really kind of need John to fill in some things. So unless someone else or Megan, do you have anything that you want to say about report from staff, old business, new business? Is John being nice to you? That kind of thing?
He's always nice.
I know.
I don't have anything for report from staff. I did have, we were thinking about starting to do in-person meetings again. And wanted the commission's feedback. We have the ability to have in-person meetings starting June 10th. So it's up to the commission, obviously, what your preference is. I just think it did have to be hybrid meetings. Zoom has to still be available, but I think at some point we're going to have to go back to in person. So we might want to try starting sooner rather than later.
So I guess my first question is, are other boards and commissions already doing hybrid?
Yes, I believe all of them are hybrid.
And so it's the mechanics of it. Early on, I attended a hybrid planning board meeting, and I could not hear, as someone participating remotely, I couldn't hear what was being said in the meeting room, particularly when a member of the audience had a question. So I guess that's the question: is the current arrangement addressing the access to the audio well enough so that everybody, in fact, is participating?
So I guess I could ask planning. They've been doing it for well over a year now, hybrid. And I don't know what their feedback is on it. The other option, because if we did it in June, we'd be doing it at the library. The other option is to wait until we're in the new town hall, where we'll be having the bigger conference rooms, and maybe the setup will be different and more readily available to facilitate that type of hybrid meeting.
Yeah, I mean, as the chairman, I'm kind of on the spot because I got to be monitoring questions in the audience and what's going on in the room at the same time. So that's why I'm concerned about the mechanics of it.
So part of it, I know Brian Carmichael, the secretary for planning board, he's on the laptop monitoring kind of the Zoom call for the commission or for his board. So he'd say, there's a question on Zoom, and I would, that would be me. I would let you know there's a question on Zoom from such and such. I'd either tell you what the question is, or we'd allow them to speak through the Zoom.
All right. So basically, you'll be a co-pilot then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's better.
I have a question, Megan. At the library, do we have the same type of capabilities of screen sharing versus whether the plans are up on a whiteboard? I haven't been there yet, but I've watched many town meetings, and I do feel that the ability for the public to see what we're discussing without the proper video footage might be not the best.
So the way I understand that happens is Norton Media goes and they'll focus on like pointing the camera to who's speaking or who's presenting. So they're projecting via Zoom to everybody on Zoom as well. So if someone is presenting like a hard copy of something that they're not sharing on Zoom, everybody on Zoom can still see it.
So when someone is sharing plans, how does that work? Because I've seen some Norton Media, and I also did a presentation at a meeting, and I can tell you the public could not see my presentation.
The way it's been explained to me is that Norton Media has a camera that's pointed at the person that's presenting, and they're also linked in with the Zoom meeting, so that they should be able to show it live.
So the presenter's always in person, and the camera's looking at a whiteboard, just like we used to in the old days, right? Is that correct? Because personally, I think the ability to share a plan on the screen on Zoom is tremendously better than I can remember sitting in that room where nobody could read the plan from across the room, and the public would have to get really close to the presenter on the easel. It was like old school.
So we also have the ability where, because it would have to be hybrid, as long as I have access to a computer, I could always pull it up on the screen as well. The same plans, even though they'd have a hard copy, I could pull up the same plans for everybody to see as well.
So
Okay.
basically, we would be running two meetings simultaneously, one on remote, with screen sharing and one in a room.
Yes.
Well, okay. I'm game as long as I don't have to run both of them.
And like I said, this is just food for thought. I mean, I just know that eventually we're gonna have to do this, unless, everything's extended. So, I don't know what the committee's feeling.
So I
But-
think when we talked about this early on, we deferred it to when number one, when new town hall was gonna be open, because we didn't know if logistically it was gonna be all set. I remember deferring it to the fall. And number two, from what I'm told, in the business, it is the video, the Zoom remote is absolutely gonna be extended. That's the word on the street in the
Well,
business.
I would prefer that personally.
Yeah, so I don't think there's any going back now, is
And-
what they're saying.
And I guess I get, you see, this is the question is, are we insisting on going back to an old technology simply because it was tradition? And yes, there were growing pains with remote, but people are used to remote and they, it is extraordinarily convenient for people not to have to, at a certain time, leave their house, jump in a car, come all the way down to a meeting room, which in the summer is fine. In the winter, it can be a mess.
It definitely is convenient, especially as someone who works for the town. I think it's convenient, but there is also the concern of, the older generation, that, may not be able to have easy access to the internet or have trouble logging in. They're the ones that have had the toughest time with this, so it's, important to take them into account as well.
Well, I can say, and then there are the older generation that has mobility or access to transportation issues. So, there are two halves to that concern about, and well, whatever. I mean, I think we should put off the decision until we have at least the new town hall.
I know most towns I do business in, it's one or the other. I haven't encountered the hybrid yet. It's either in person or it's remote. And I just, putting that in perspective, I think we also need to think about, we're a group of volunteers, so I think we need to make it easy on ourselves. If this hybrid approach is gonna make it more difficult for us, then I think we need to think about that. We should be doing not only what's easy for the public, but what's easy for the commission as well. Easiest.
Megan, how many, or anyone who knows this, do we know how many meeting rooms the new town hall is going to have?
Well, I know it's going to have a very large one, and then I think 2 or 3 additional smaller ones.
And they're all gonna be equipped with,
I don't know the answer to that. I think
okay.
they probably would be, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. This is I'm trying to think the right analogy where we have clearly an improved technology as far as both access and clarity, and they're trying to mix an old and new way of doing things, and coming out with something that works is going to be difficult.
I guess we can wait to try it, but
Well, we did have that one hybrid meeting a little while back. It didn't go horrible, but it definitely was a learning curve.
Does the town have, there's probably multiple different brands, but the OWL devices where it's like a speaker in the middle and then it follows
Rotates.
along kind of who's talking. And even if there's like a crowd, it'll still point the direction of where there's sound.
Paxton, that's science fiction. I don't know what you're talking about.
It is
I
science.
was on one of
That's
those
where
today.
we're-
The thing was I was in the Boston office and it was following me around. That little
Yeah.
owl thing. Yeah.
I mean, it's probably a drop in the bucket for a new town hall to put, owl device in two to three rooms. So
Well, how fictional could it be when the speaker here has a yellow box around their they know who's speaking. So
Yeah, but if multiple people speak, then the yellow boxes show up all over the place. But at any rate, I mean, I'm finding Zoom to be very workable right now, particularly with the screen sharing. All of these plans are electronic digital records. The only way they can be presented to a meeting room is if you have a large screen display or if everybody in the meeting room has a laptop. And then the issue is, well, if there are other people remote, how are they seeing? So you have to be running a second meeting with screen sharing. And then the presenter has to be doing that and addressing the screen. I just think a hybrid meeting it's like flying two airplanes at once.
I know I'm new to this and I don't have stacks of paper sitting in front of me and I like that.
Yeah, I mean, I print the orders and the minutes, but other than that, a lot of stuff I just review on the computer. Exactly.
Okay, so we can wait till town hall opens up and see how it goes, see how the meeting room is configured, and decide then.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can on our own review, attend some of these other hybrid meetings like planning and maybe you can send us links so we can log on to some of those meetings as they're going on and we can just observe whether they've got it finally polished or whether there's a lot of bumps.
Yeah, because they have one tomorrow night, so I can send you guys one for tomorrow.
All right. That because I think that'll help if we can review how other boards are doing it, and then we can have more to make our decision about.
Okay.
There was the issue of docs, and I guess there's a lot of information to be discussed about that. I think we really need John to help us out with that. But I think that's going to be an ongoing issue to get the town, I guess, in compliance with the Chapter 91 requirements. Is that your feeling, Lisa? Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, our bylaw should absolutely be consistent with Chapter 91 and any DCR requirements. So they definitely need a Chapter 91 license, and it is absolutely painful. It's about 9 months and can go up to between 18 and 30 grand to get a license. And so,
Well, I presume there's a mechanism whereby the town has a procedure where people can add on to it, and it can be less of a project. Is that correct?
what do you mean? So the Chapter 91 permit process is completely independent of the Wetlands Protection Act. It's a separate set of regulations.
So you're saying, because I thought if the town had a bylaw, you're saying a bylaw can't be a substitution for Chapter 91.
Oh, no,
process.
definitely not. Oh, gosh, no. So Chapter 91 is very prescriptive. It's been around, it's the colonial ordinance of 1797. It's been around forever. It's one of the oldest regulations on the books in the Commonwealth. And it's anything over, flowed, what we call flowed tidelands or formerly filled tidelands. So if you think about most of Boston, it was filled in. Where they go back to the original shoreline. And anybody that wants to put anything, a building, you name it, within the original shoreline, which used to flow, you have to get a permit. It is crazy town. But it extends, so Chapter 91 jurisdiction on the inland end of this extends to Great Ponds. So they will absolutely need a permit, a Chapter 91 license to build a dock. So
That's the reason that the Great Ponds are, so these were all the structures that were present that far back. And so very few man-made structures within Massachusetts at that time.
Yeah.
Julian,
I think the bottom line is, sorry, just one more thing. Our bylaw has to be consistent with the 91 regulations. I think that's what John was realizing, that our bylaw, our water, whatever it was, the boating
Right, so our bylaw would still apply to the man-made structures.
It would, yes, anything proposed. Yes.
Julian, I have a quick question. Is this something we can take into executive discussion to get this ironed out and not on a regular meeting?
Well, it's not just executive. I mean, I think there has to be.
And then presentate it to the public at the end, once we have our determinations and everything?
Well,
Because we're gonna have to, obviously, we're gonna have to edit bylaws and all kinds of things.
Right, but just the basic issue that Lisa is discussing is it's an education for all of us that it's a topic that we haven't really addressed because we've primarily been enforcing the Wetland Protection Act. And I think it doesn't matter if it's executive or not. It's an open, you know, this is the legal structure of the state of Massachusetts. So
Correct, but Article 91, we have no enforcement agency. It's just a checkbox we need on our list because we're not in control of it. We're not the enforcement agency. We're not the issuing agency. It just needs to be in order that anything we issue needs to be in compliant with Article.
With Chapter 91.
Sorry, Chapter 91.
And most commissions will reference, you know, send us a copy of your Chapter 91 license when you issue it. There may be a cross-reference. You can cross-reference it. You don't have to. But the applicant and anybody around that pond needs to be aware. So basically, anybody that has a dock there today should have a Chapter 91 license.
and the public needs to know that.
Yep. And so a few years ago, Chapter 91 had what they call an amnesty program. And they told everybody in the public, look, if you did something that, you know, wasn't licensed, you built a dock, a pier, or wherever it was, and you didn't get a license, now is your time to come forward. There won't be any penalties. And I think they gave everybody, like, I don't know how many years to the amnesty program. And I don't know why that didn't filter down to, you know, somebody on Great Ponds. There's only a handful of them in the state. So why they didn't send it to everybody, I don't know.
Well, I mean, this is.
It's the state's problem, really.
And then perhaps that's, yeah, you're right. But as a town, we can't permit it unless someone has said, okay, here's my Chapter 91 permit.
Exactly.
And now, okay.
Yep, and the 91 license has to be signed, I think it's by zoning and the planning department. I don't know if Concom has to sign the application. I should look that up. Haven't done one in a couple of years, but it does have to have local approval. The license does, so.
Well, I mean, I think as a commission, as just a, you know, part of the town structure, having some kind of a nice little synopsis written up, as you point out, this is the history of Chapter 91. It is a state function, but we happen to have a water body where this state law applies. that, as an information sheet, that may be helpful for us to
Yeah.
put.
Or, yeah, at a minimum, it should be cross-referenced in our voting, or whatever that bylaw is called.
Waterways
The Waterways bylaw, yes, it should be cross-referenced in that.
All right, well, this is, obviously something that's gonna have to be, more, thoroughly delineated. And, and let's see, we have anything else on our, kind of lost my last page of my agenda. Oh, here we go. Rose Farm update, I think we'll just wait for John to talk to us about that. In-person meetings we touched on. And, so I think we're all set, unless someone else has something to talk about.
Yeah, I'll make a motion to adjourn, 8:45.
Second.
Yeah, and how much fun has it been? All right. Good night, guys.
Night.
Night.
Night.